back to some years from today, I was trying so hard finding who I am, understanding what my purpose is, and how I can form myself into a way where I truly feel like I'm at the destination of the thing I like to do, and now I can start through. I haven't found that thing in a very long time, and it was a big part of who I was and who I am now, and the reasons why I was able to understand what gives me fulfillment and what not only came through the fact that I was breaking myself down in this whole process of not being able to find it and being stuck in the frustration and being exposed to external factors that kept me going stagnant as they were impacting my life in a regard that just felt so miserably. And I'm talking about factors that you are not able to define or pave, which you're just exposed as their circumstances you are growing up in. And these times of growing up, being exposed to things that might mark your being, are the times that make up the most part of who we are when we are not facing them, and when we not conclude what is actually behind these times and how we could be able to understand why these things are impacting us. And when there's no reason why, because we are just in that position, then we still have so much to learn about what is going on here. And the combination of striving for something unknown that was so far off from what actually felt good, or what actually was tangible, and these external impacts that kept holding my good feelings back, as these family situations, for example, weren't on the greatest path. All these things, just when they stack up and you are just trying to run away from those things, you're breaking down the opportunity to grow out of these times and to reflect on these things, as there's stuff getting lost in the translation of understanding it when you run away. And that's a thing I had to understand after a very long time, when back then I was facing these unpleasant circumstances at home. I just knew I had to get out of this, no matter how. And all I wanted was just get far off, leave the place at best, and not come back so soon. But that was the main problem. I wasn't facing it, and there wasn't anyone actually giving me advice on a level that could have led me into the way of just talking to someone professional about these kind of things. And it was recommended sometimes, for sure, but I also liked it to some extent to be in this position of just finding a way for myself. And whenever you're in a life cycle where you just fight against all the help that might come to you and think that the most rebellious thing you might do is the best, then that's the path, and it's okay, but you gotta take it as well. And I got to see that it just delayed so many things. It delayed the realization within myself to understand what kind of position I take up in all this. And it also delayed the fact that I didn't know where to start with my whole process because of all these impacts. So what I was doing back then was quite something that was going into a self-destructive way. I was not trying to accept help. I was not trying to face the things that impacted my life in a way that made me feel so stuck and so lost. And it doesn't always have to come with bad circumstances in which we have to feel lost. We can also feel quite good and just be lost, only because we don't know how to face our innermost being and don't try to understand who we actually are and what made us the person we are today, to this day, in this exact moment. And what I was actively trying to imply on myself was a kind of act of destructiveness that seemingly showed me feelings of even more breakdown. And this loop of doing something that is actually hurting you, but getting into the position of liking it because it's a way of feeling life in this whole numbness, even though you numb off the actual feeling of life by doing that kind of thing, is a very dangerous cycle to get in. And there are many people out there who are never actually finding the exit or taking the initiative to stop these destructive cycles or the seemingly pleasant moments of just numbing them off, when they're actually just pulling off the whole meaning of being in that exact position now, as it's their challenge. It's always your challenge. It's always going to be the challenge you have to take, because that's your life. And no matter what you're facing, it shall not end the next moment. It shall not be that you are looking away and taking the path of that's gonna be the easiest, and that sometimes might be the one that's numbing, that is feeling like you ain't gotta think about so much other stuff, as you just get into this cycle of existence on autopilot, that also doesn't seem too bad in a certain situation, that you just numb off all the potential life that's still so deeply down in there. But I didn't understand that back then, and I had to go even further. I had to strain myself even harder. I had to have many more experiences that were showing me how much I seemingly love this kind of self-destructiveness, how much I love getting out there into the club or whatever kind of place and just filling me up with all kind of drugs, just to get my heart racing and to have like this feeling, when in the end this was always just a veil. And through this whole thing, I was actually pointing myself into a direction which had quite a hard hit foreseen. And the hit came. I got to take it one day. I had to feel it, how all this is just gonna be blowing myself up, as it was also an unconscious plan. Because not everybody is blowing up in this kind of field. Not everyone is doing drugs to such an extent that they get a psychosis, because they always know when to avoid doing more. They always know how to get back into some sort of cycle where they can retain that sort of tolerance they were building up. But I didn't want to keep in that. I knew it somehow, even though I could have never faced it back then. So I let this all blow up by just overdoing it over and over and over again, until I couldn't take it no more. I was having such an immense amount of paranoia. I was always hearing people talking about me when having the windows open at home, and I was seeing them coming. I just felt like they'd come very soon, and they'll get me. Whoever they were, mostly the cops for sure, but it was so intense that I just and someday had a major breakdown and just told myself, yeah, it's over. It's over now. I gotta go. I gotta pass that stuff down and go to the hard route now. That has no meaning. I'd rather end it this moment than going any further. That was life-changing decision, and it came with the long-awaited contrast I was hoping for, and I was seeking before as well, but I just underestimated it big time, how hard it would have been to just move off and let everything behind. I just didn't want to take it for granted. It felt almost like I would betray myself by now not staying on the track that I've been going for some years already, doing these kind of stuff, this kind of self-destructiveness. But at that day, when I just told myself, it's over now, I took the complete opposite path. I let everything fall down and seeked for help, even though I saw some of these institutions won't help me when they just give me some sort of other medications to get me off of the others. So I just left the place again. Said, okay, can do it on my own. That was very strengthening. It helped me get through it easier, as every moment on which I saw that I can do it on my own, I can distance myself from people, from substances that were impacting me for a very long time now, felt like a good one. It felt like it's all in my hands, and it's in my power to now change the life I'm actually living. And so I started to seek for things that also were actually fulfilling, even though I didn't know what it might be, even though I didn't understand what I might be able to do to actually get off these destructive thoughts that I had previously. And how should I even fill this kind of space? How should I find something that actually exchanges these old patterns that were taking my life with something that's giving me life now? When there was so much time just going into doing all these kind of things, spending time with people, being deep down there in these scenes, just hanging around, doing these kind of drugs, and just being so immersed in that kind of stuff. How should something fill this gap now when I distanced myself from it? And that process almost took as long as the time I was in this kind of field, being deep down into drugs, held on almost the same length than the time I was searching for something that might give me fulfillment. And this is likely just a thing that has came to me like it did, because that's how it was assigned to me, to get out of these patterns. And I hadn't made any progress before in regard of finding my fulfillment, as I was always swapping around things I was trying to pursue and stuff I thought I would stick to, but then switched off again. So the journey had to start anew on a path I haven't ever been on. But that was fine. I just knew I've gone through shit, and now it all gonna be easier. I've faced these low points in my life, these very deep points. I've seen them, I've looked at them. I told myself actively that I'll be able to get off these things. I'll be able to distance myself from these people. I'll be able to get off these substances and go a different kind of route. I just knew that there's something in life that can give as much as fulfillment as all these things other people were doing around me, which might make life feel fulfilled, which might seem like things that make you feel good. But when you're not at a stage of having like this fundamental kind of thought of being so clear that there is something like that, you can imagine how easy I could have also felt back into these kind of things. But I just stick to it because I didn't want to lose the progress no more. It felt already like I'm moving into the right direction, and now I just gotta persist for more and more time, and I'll get something back from it. And that was the time when I actually started to try understanding what my purpose might be. What is the thing I might be good at, I would like to do? What are those things? And I didn't get an answer. But the answer I got after a long time facing these questions was that it has to be something that just gives me this fulfillment from within when executing it. And this doesn't have to be like the biggest kind of thing you are thinking about. It can be a very tiny action you do in your life, where you get so much back all of a sudden that you can take this experience you just made in that situation and abstract it and look at potential things that might pave a way into a direction of fulfillment, of something where you can see your destiny in. And back then I thought I could only find these things that interest me by looking at, or what I want to pursue by looking at the things that had interested me the times before. And I was interested in tech, I knew that, and it didn't change ever since. But when I thought about, okay, this is my interest, I would love to pursue something in that kind of area, but I have no knowledge and I don't know if that's the right way to go, and I'm only ever touching the surface of that specific area, as I don't feel quite right about going deeper. When something like that happened back then, and these thoughts were coming, the thoughts were overtaking my actions I could have made and just left me empty-handed again. And this empty-handedness over another few years in the end just let me see that I don't have to seek for things and try to fill the gaps of something that might be meaningful to me, but I'll just have to feel it. I'll have to feel what I want to see when I look far away. And the feeling I get by seeing something that far off, that's the thing I should chase. And I'm not trying to tell you now that I just only found my meaning through having these long distance goals. But it helped me. It helped me see more clearly. Once I started to apply what I'm feeling onto this view I'm making myself. And I can look at wherever I want and can see things. And when I see the mountain back there and I glimpse how it might feel being up there, I'm already starting to burn for this thing and almost forget about what's in between. But if I would just focus on the exhaustion of getting up the mountain, of the things I might not be capable of yet, then I'm so much more likely to never go, to not take any step, and only go around here because that's an habit that I'm able to stay in. But what is the actual kind of trick we fall in? Our own perception here is we could also not be able to make another step when we go in the flat. We can also not be able to get another step ahead when we go up the mountain, for sure, as it's way more exhausting. But to know that there's a level where we even wouldn't be able to make another step in the flat is something that just gives so much room, the mountain. Because it doesn't matter where there's and what it is, there's always a limit to it. And that's fine. But not taking the step by only focusing on the space in between and not being able to see the potential of just getting up there, doing something that's new to you, is just limiting the potential. And so what I took from that was I started to not focus on the things that might lead me into the direction, but focus more on the fundamental impacts I want to make. And whenever you think about something like that, you're standing in front of a decision where it's a fundamental impact you make for yourself or for others. But what you shall never forget is that even when it's only for you, there is impact being made for others as well, by just being who you are, by just pursuing what you want to do or what you love to do, and showing what you do and how you do it, and having people around you or that actually look at what you're doing. You can be an inspiration as well and have a fundamental impact on others. It doesn't matter, it will always give something back for other people, no matter what you do. So when I flipped the whole thing around and saw I won't find fulfillment by just trial and erroring my way through these experiences, by starting to learn some sort of coding language, programming language. Sorry for that. Because I didn't have the goal in mind, the thing I want to build, then yeah, it just let all the air out of the things I was actually trying to do. And when I would stay or get back to that position today, I would just try to immerse myself in some sort of project, because that would be a great motivation to go after once you start something new that's complex, like a programming language, to have this project in mind you could build with it, and just sticking to starting to understand what this thing is and how it works, and getting closer each time to being able to execute it for yourself. So yeah, that's what I did. And it made me who I am today. Showed me quite some stuff about myself. You're strong. We can do it. Stay on it. All the best.